often prevent you from doing so, and things get a lot more fun once you've finished playing through the first 5 to 10 hours. But even in those first few hours, you'll quickly realize that navigating the castle and surrounding highlands can be a bit overwhelming. The best way to find your way around is by using your field guide to conjure this really nice golden thread that shows you the shortest path to your quest objective. To get it to show up, first select a quest you want to focus on in the menu, and then back in the main gameplay screen, simply tap on your D-pad and your field guide will conjure the golden thread for you to follow. I found this invaluable, especially in the castle where it's really easy to get confused about where you are and where you need to go. You do need the map to access Flue Flame fast travel points though. So in addition to rotating the castle around and zooming in with R2 to select these points, you can also use the list on the left to choose an area and then the specific Flue Flame you want to go to. For example, I find this is the easiest way to get back to the Room of Requirement once you unlock it. Fast travel can be initiated from anywhere, by the way, and it's totally free to use, so don't worry about wasting resources on it. When looking at the world map of the Highlands, it's helpful to know that hitting L2 multiple times will zoom you out to a top-down view showing all the different regions across the map and a list of collectibles you can find in each one, which is really handy once you start exploring the Highlands. Now, something the game doesn't tell you is that instead of moving your cursor up to select the Hogwarts, Hogsmeade, and world maps each time you want to switch them, you can instead just use left and right on your D-pad, which is much faster. You'll also eventually find that certain objectives require you to visit locations specifically during the day or night, and instead of waiting for the day-night cycle to progress normally, you can manually change the time of day at any time by opening the map and pressing down on your right thumbstick. Just keep in mind you might have to do it twice when trying to make it day if your first try actually takes you from evening to night, which can look pretty similar. Now, as you play through the opening quests and get out into the open world, you'll definitely want to get in the habit of tapping left on your D-pad to use Revelio frequently. This will help you find chests and other objects to interact with pretty much everywhere you go, and doing so is important to gain XP, gather resources, and find hidden puzzles. Probably the most important collectible early on are field guide pages, which grant a nice burst of XP when you collect one. These are scattered all over, and lots of them are revealed by casting Revelio nearby, but flying ones need to be snagged with the Accio spell, which you'll unlock early in the main storyline. You can also find some by casting Levioso on these statues holding ornate orbs, and Incendio or Confringo on these dragon braziers. You'll also come across a variety of chests containing different types of loot. Your regular chests either have galleons, which is the game's currency, or a piece of gear. The more ornate looking ones are collection chests, which contain cosmetics for your outfits and decorations for the Room of Requirement. Disillusionment chests are the really valuable ones though. These have an eyeball on them and contain 500 galleons each, which is a lot of money in game, so you definitely want to prioritize finding these as you'll need lots of galleons to purchase all sorts of things. To open disillusionment chests, you need to sneak up to them after first making yourself invisible with the disillusionment charm, which is unlocked through a quest with Sebastian a bit after your first trip to Hogsmeade. Now, as soon as you do learn the disillusionment charm, you'll absolutely want to head straight back to Hogsmeade because there's at least 10 disillusionment chests in and around the village, meaning you can get at least 5,000 galleons really easily within the first few hours of your game. Skirt around the edge of the village casting Revelio and you'll find them quite easily. Plus, there's plenty more in the castle and other locations too. Now, you're also going to run into these ornate puzzle doors with creatures engraved on the frame and some math-looking stuff in the middle. These are called arithmancy doors, and if you're a Potterhead, you might have been able to figure these out pretty quickly. But I think most people are totally confused by these, and understandably so. So here's how they work. The creatures around the frame represent the numbers 0 through 9. The demiguise in the bottom left is 0, the unicorn is 1, and so on. Now, on the door itself, we have 2 triangles, each with a big number in the center and 3 spots for numbers or creature symbols at the corners. In those spots, we need 3 numbers that add up to the big number in the center. 2 of the numbers are given, either directly as numbers or as creature symbols, and we have to figure out the third. So for example, on this one we're given the number 11 and a grab horn, which means 2. So that adds up to 13, and we need an 8 to add up to the 21 in the center. So now I find the single question mark die on the wall and roll it until I get the spider for number 8. Repeat the same steps with the second triangle and you'll be able to unlock the door. Now you can also find a cheat sheet for this inside the arithmancy classroom, but you really don't need it if you just remember that the creatures are arranged in numerical order on the door frame. By the way guys, if you're finding these tips helpful, leaving a like on the video would be awesome and much appreciated, as it really does go a long way in helping me out. Now, the arithmancy door puzzles reward you with a few collectibles, including pieces of gear, and gear is definitely something we should discuss as well.
Attention bargain hunters, don't miss out. Here's a free backpack, take it, it's yours. We're doing an experiment for today only, to see if anyone actually watches these ads or reads the caption that says free. Most hover their finger over the skip ad button until it hits the 5-second mark. So we want to know who's really watching and reward them for paying attention. So click the button below to claim your free military grade backpack now. No hidden fees or charges. They're really free because we're running this one-day experiment on an all-purpose backpack for camping, hiking, and exploring. All we ask is for you to cover the ship as well.
You'll find 4 rarity levels of gear, starting with the basic green well-appointed. We then have blue superb, purple extraordinary, and orange legendary. Each piece of gear has stats for either offense, defense, or both. Offense makes your attacks deal more damage, and defense reduces the damage taken from enemy attacks. Blue, purple, and orange gear can be upgraded 3 times to increase these stats. And those 3 rarities of gear can also be equipped with traits, which add special properties like resistance to a particular type of enemy. Traits themselves come in 3 rarity levels too. You can find lower tier traits in bandit camps, which always have them in a chest, but the stronger tier 3 traits are unlocked by completing a variety of challenges. This brings up another important tip, which is to check the challenges tab in your menu often, because you actually have to claim the pieces of gear and other rewards from completed challenges. Oddly enough, they aren't just given to you automatically. You have to go in there and claim each one, so definitely make sure you check that frequently. Oh, and while we're in here, you also want to check your owl post frequently. Most of those play audio when you get them, so you can't miss them, but some come in really stealthy, so you might actually get to a point where you feel like there's no quest to move forward with, and it's probably because you have something waiting in your owl post. Now, the most frustrating thing with gear is that you're given very limited inventory space to hold it all. You'll quickly find that you won't be able to loot additional gear while your inventory is full, which is really quite annoying. To make space, you either have to sell things off to a shopkeeper in Hogsmeade, or you have to destroy it, which is obviously not ideal since you won't get any galleons in that case. Don't worry about selling items though, because they aren't unique. You'll find lots of copies of the same ones as you play, and as far as I can tell, the stats they come with are randomized to a certain extent. So you'll actually often find lower rarity gear with better stats than your higher rarity gear. In that case, you should totally use it. Now, I think the other thing people worry about when selling gear is that they'll lose the ability to wear a cool looking piece of kit because they were forced to make room in their inventory. Fortunately, we don't need to worry about that either, because once you find a piece of gear, you'll get to keep the cosmetic for it even if you sell it off, and you can apply the look of the items you like to any other piece of gear. So here's how I recommend you handle gear. Every so often, check the gear tab to make sure you've got all the best items equipped. Now, this is often going to look totally ridiculous, but it's not a problem because we can hover over each piece of gear and hit square to enter the change appearance menu, where you can make it look like any other piece of gear you've ever possessed. You can also make gear invisible, so if you're like me and you generally don't like hats or facewear, you can equip them for the stats and then just make them invisible so it looks like you're not wearing them. Once you're set up with the best kit, take a quick trip to Hogsmeade to sell off all the extra stuff to make space in your inventory. This gear management strategy ensures you're maximizing your stats, keeping space in your inventory for new gear, and keeping your character looking the way you want. Another tip on gear is that when you find a new piece, the on-screen pop-up will have a green or red arrow to show you if it's better or worse than the item you currently have equipped, so you can immediately tell if you should switch to using the new one. It's also pretty cool that you can put your cloak's hood up by hovering over the cloak and robe slot and pressing triangle. Later on, you'll also be able to customize your wand and broom with different handles, which is actually fairly important to keep in mind while choosing your wand, because if you don't like how the bottom of the wand looks, it's not such a big deal, as you'll be able to customize it later with a handle. You can customize more than the look of gear items too. By going to Madam Snelling's shop in Hogsmeade, you can change pretty much everything about your character. The only thing you can't change is the face shape, so you'll want to make sure you get one that you like in the initial character creator. Now, even using the strategy I described earlier to manage your inventory of gear, the lack of inventory space is still pretty frustrating, but you can gain some additional slots by completing Merlin trials. These unlock after speaking with Nora Treadwell, who you can find immediately after finishing a main quest with Natty called The Girl from Wagadoo. There's lots of Merlin trials all over the map, and I highly recommend doing a total of 8 of them straight away to unlock 2 levels of additional inventory slots. You'll get your first one with Nora, and then there's a second one just up the hill from her. Then you can find 6 more quite easily by simply navigating to these leaf icons on the map. Now let's briefly talk about the Room of Requirement, as it's a pretty major part of your gameplay. Not only is the room a cool customizable space, but it also serves the important role of being your production center to generate resources for yourself by growing plants, brewing potions, and caring for creatures. But you'll have to progress things quite far along before before the Room of Requirement can really kick into gear. There's a quest line with Deke the House Elf you'll want to complete, and you also need some time to gather enough galleons so you can purchase recipes and spellcrafts in Hogsmeade to use in the room. So I actually recommend mostly ignoring the Room of Requirement until you're at least level 15 or so and have completed those quests with Deke. That being said, it's worth noting that you need Moonstone to conjure things in the room, so you'll want to make sure to break these Moonstone crystals as you're exploring to rack up some resources. You can also get over 100 Moonstone by simply vanishing all the default items in the room when you first visit it. Around the time you get access to the room, you'll also complete the Jackdaw's Rest main quest, which will unlock the skills, or talents. You get a talent point each time you level up, and it's important to realize that they're not refundable. Once you invest a skill point in a talent, that's it. You can't change it or get the point back.